Hey everybody, this is Tim Sutton. I'm coming to you with a new perspective. Appreciate you being here, joining us. Hopefully you'll learn something. And if you haven't been here before, I'm a law enforcement officer in the state of Virginia, and I do a lot of work with individuals with autism, intellectual disability, other developmental disabilities, as well as Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. And I've been working with a lot of families since about 2002, 2003. I'm still active law enforcement here in Virginia. So been out here 33, 34 years. And what I try to do on the show here is bring you a new perspective of individuals who are active in the disability, which I prefer to call differabilities, because these individuals have amazing abilities, but sometimes they just do things differently. But there's some amazing people. But I bring you people who to interview and talk to, who've lived the autism, intellectual disability journey, Alzheimer's journey, but also other officers from around the area and different places in the country that are kind of doing what I'm doing at work and working a lot with families. And many of them have done some amazing things. The individual that's visiting us tonight, I met her back in 2011. She's an officer for Montgomery County Police Department in Maryland, and has since 2004 been doing a lot of the same things, if not more things than I've been doing with the special populations. And she's really made a name for herself everywhere. And if you get a chance to follow her, I would strongly suggest it. But like I said, I met her in 2011 when my agency here in Virginia, we had one of the largest searches in the state of Virginia, looking for a 9-year-old boy with autism who was non-speaking. He was verbal in the fact that he could squeal and scream and make noises, but he was non-speaking. He could speak a couple words, but the search ended up going on 5.5 days. And during those 5.5 days, we had over 6,000 people show up, citizens, officers from other jurisdictions inside Virginia as well as outside of Virginia, to come and help. And this officer, Laurie Reyes, came down from Montgomery with her dad, I believe she said, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I'd like everybody just to welcome Laurie to the show.
Hi there, everybody.
Hey, I really appreciate you coming on, and it's been a long time wanting to catch up with you and see how things are going. You can search you online and see you're doing tons of things, and we got to talk the other night about some of that and catch up. But I think this show we're going to touch on a few things, but I have a feeling in the future we may have a few more conversations about what we're doing out there to help families and help individuals who are dealing with differabilities. So we met in 2011, and we met on the last day of that search when we found Robbie, the 9-year-old. Tell me what brought you down to Virginia to travel all the way to help my agency with this search?
So I knew that I was already starting kind of my journey and what I was going to do with helping those and making law enforcement better as it relates to autism and IDD. And that week I had kind of watched everything, and I said, well, if he's not found by day 5, day 6, I'm going to go down there, because I'd never been involved, and it was the most incredible search ever. And I thought, you know what, I'm trying to be a better officer and bring back things to Montgomery County. I needed to be there. I felt this drive to be there. So as I said, I gathered up my country dad and picked him up at 5 a.m. and said, you got to come with me. I didn't go down there as a police officer. I truly went as a volunteer. And when I got there, I was just overwhelmed, for lack of a better expression. I was overwhelmed with how many people were there and how many people were in need, the families that came out. So for me that day, it changed me. It truly did, as far as wanting to bring back good information to our officers.
Right. Yeah, I was there the night Robbie went missing. I was a supervisor working the county at the time, and as soon as we got the call, I verified with my dispatch. I said, "You've got autism." They said 10-4. So I immediately had my 3 officers that were going to. I instructed them get to the river that backs up to that. And it's not a park where you're going to go throw the frisbee with pretty grass. It is old Civil War battlefield pretty much. So you're dealing with rough terrain, trenches, but with drowning being the #1 cause of death, I wanted my officers in elopement issues. I wanted my officers down there as quick as possible to check that water. But that night we searched all night. I came back the next morning, and Tuesday morning, I remember that was a Sunday night. It was Tuesday morning. I came in at 6 a.m. and I wasn't aware of a lot of the things that were going on that you probably pulled up on that Friday morning. But I was doing a briefing for some officers coming in and people coming in to help. And I got summoned out to the parking lot of Kings Dominion Amusement Park, which was right beside where we were that day you showed up. And I walked out and it was tent city. And I was like, my goodness, what's going on? And I saw a line of about 1,000 people lining up. I had no idea what they were there for. I had no clue they were citizens. And I went up and one of my majors said, I need you out here. I went out there and he said, go in that tent and start teaching autism.
It was amazing.
Well, I walked in a tent and I had 50 people just sitting there. And I gave them what I knew about Robbie and other information about autism. They went and got on buses, another 50. So for 3.5 days, all I did was class after class after class, over 6,000 people. But apparently that Friday morning, you went through one of my classes with your dad.
I did. And it was just like anybody else. I didn't want to say what I did, or I just felt like it was so well organized that to go through a tent before you searched so that you understood what the dynamics of autism, it was incredible.
Yeah. And my thing was I did, after that search, I did a lot of interviews across the country and believe it or not, agencies, police departments were calling me, asking me, why is it different looking for somebody with autism than it is somebody who doesn't? And what you would call neurotypical. And I was always like, well, how much time do you have? Because you're not necessarily looking for somebody who wants to be found. I honestly think Robbie stayed out in the woods and probably played hide and seek with us for 5.5 days, and we found him alive. And all because you and your dad came down that last day, we were able to find him.
So what's funny is I said I'm gonna put Skittles in my bag for good luck, right? So I said I'm gonna put Skittles because I feel like it's good luck. And I told my dad that, and sure enough, on that day, I heard it go out over the radio, and my dad said, "It's those Skittles, you knew."
So new respect for Skittles, right?
It was amazing. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced in all my career.
Well, I was lucky to get to meet you. I think you approached me and kind of told me who you are and all, and that's kind of how we connected. And again, I've followed what you're doing, and you went back to Montgomery County and just, you seem to be on fire because you've done so much. You were telling me the other day that they pulled you out of the special ops unit, and actually you're working with a group, and you've got the Autism, IDD, Alzheimer's, Dementia outreach unit, and that is your responsibility. How did that come about?
So I was under special operations because at the time there was no other, and as I know it now, there still is no other official autism IDD officer for a police department. So they put us under special operations, and that was a good fit. It's still a good fit. But what happened was as autism, I always say I kind of grew up with autism. My career grew with autism because the dynamics of interactions with law enforcement changed. So it became a better fit as we're addressing more calls of a serious nature, as our guys are aging, as the prevalency increased, to include me under our CIT, which is our critical incident team.
Right.
So it's a mental health based team. And we know that autism is not, a mental illness, but what we're seeing is a lot of co-occurring conditions. So it was a better fit to have me under that division, but I still work closely with MSOT and our search and rescue officers. Okay. So it's kind of just a more general place, a better fit for the autism IDD unit, which is me. It's a unit of one, but a lot of awesome officers.
Right, but you're put in a position to really focus on that one aspect, and as opposed to me, I'm a patrol sergeant, and then I'm still doing the tracking systems and going out and meeting families. We've got 130 families in the county that somebody's wearing one of those tracking things in case they wander off. But kind of like, when I was given the assignment to run that program, and I'll tell you a little bit in case you didn't. The first child I met with autism, I've shared this story numerous times. 6 years old, and as soon as I walked in the house, first thing he did was put his hand on my weapon. And we had to convey, okay, Matthew, don't do that. Don't do that. And then he would come up to me and lean against it. And we're like, Matthew, don't do that. Well, I'm sitting there talking to the parents at the kitchen table, and I look on the floor, and he's laying on the floor, and he's got his finger up my barrel. And that's when I thought, okay, with autism, unless there's an underlying issue, they don't look any different than anybody else. And what happens 20 years from now if that's still one of his fixations? And I'm standing in a 7-Eleven or a convenience store, and he comes in and runs over and grabs my weapon. How am I to interpret that? Because I'm going home at the end of the night. Every officer needs to know they're going home at the end of the night. That's number one thing. But number two, hopefully everybody else is. But that's really what got me into teaching beyond the elopement aspect and the wandering aspect, was realizing these families and these individuals were dealing with so much, and they needed us to understand. You expressed that you realized y'all were going on a ton of calls related to it. And one word you always said, I watch so many interviews, and I tell people, first of all, you don't know what you don't know. You're going to revert back to training. But if you've never been trained, you're not going to revert back and do the best thing you can. But we need to train our officers to do our jobs more effectively. And what you do and how you approach it allows that to be the case.
Yeah, and if I could, so I'll tell you the little kind of the spiel of the program. So our program is called the Montgomery County Police Autism, IDD, Alzheimer's and Dementia Unit.
Right.
And what we do is we provide education, all of our officers, the community, individuals. We work with individuals who have autism and IDD, and caregivers. Then we provide follow-up. That includes me going to a house after a wandering and elopement, after a crisis.
Right.
We provide empowerment. Then we provide the response piece. So it's kind of this total approach. And our calls go from mundane, a very simple search, all the way up to someone who's in complete crisis. I mean, we really run the gamut as far as our outreach in the autism community, and all areas of the spectrum, from those severely impacted to those that are moderately to minimally impacted, that maybe you're kind of navigating this world with some bumps in the road.
Right. Have you had any issues? I know here a lot of times, I feel like the general public looks at our job in law enforcement as they go out there and arrest bad guys and they enforce traffic. And they don't think we really understand what they're dealing with. But when you come in and sit down at the table with them, and you can ask them about the stemming, or you can ask them what are their fixations, what the trigger words that set them off, and they start to realize officers, they understand some of this stuff, because I feel like a wall has been built, but being able to go into these families and sit at the kitchen table or wherever and speak intelligently about it, it's so appreciative, and it does tear that wall down.
Yeah. And you know what else I'll say? So we average between 4 and 8 fines a week. People are sometimes shocked. 4 to 8 fines, meaning we locate a person who has autism a week. And that's usually not us searching for, but us locating.
Right.
So half of that, when you talk about building those bridges with law enforcement, you take a mom who just last weekend, whose son is 5 years old and was found in the middle of near a major intersection, who's non-speaking, has autism. Part of my role, unless there's an obvious sign of abuse, which that's so rare, part of my role is to say to that mom, you're not a bad mom. You have a child with autism. We get it, right? We get it. We're here for you. The Montgomery County Police Department is here for you. And sometimes it's just a matter of telling that mom that, so that the next time, God forbid it happens, she knows I can call 911 and they're not calling Child Protective Services.
Right.
They're going to get a translator from me for those who speak Spanish or another language. So building bridges that way, because that mom's going to tell another mom, hey, if you call the police, they're not going to be mad at you. In fact, sometimes I use humor and say, Mom, I'm juggling too, right? We're all juggling. Don't be afraid to call. So it builds bridges when you have a mom that is in crisis, that you say, we're going to work with you. And one more thing, there are times, in this climate where people focus on social workers and all of that. And we have a social worker housed in our unit, but there are families that we, the police, are the only resource they have ever been provided. Sometimes I am the only big voice demanding that a mom or dad needs services. So that builds bridges when you're a voice for those that need it.
Yeah, and what you're doing is you're making a huge impact, because I feel like so many people they've already got the child that may lay in the front yard and beat their head on the ground and scream, and all the neighbors are looking at them, what's going on. So they're being scrutinized. When they have a crisis, they're so apprehensive to call us because do they really want 2, 3 police cars showing up? And when the police show up, they usually leave with somebody. And then they, like you said, they're going to call CPS. I'm going to be told I'm a terrible caregiver or a parent, or if it's Alzheimer's or dementia, I'm going to be told I'm a terrible caregiver, care partner. But what you're doing is helping break that wall down, and we need officers and you're going to have some officers who still think our job is to arrest bad guys, write tickets, and you're not going to break that. We talk about teaching some classes. There's some of them you're not going to get through to, but we need to educate these guys and girls to get out there. And I constantly say, when I was sworn to protect and serve, I wasn't sworn to protect and serve this population or that population or this other population. We're there for everybody, and the impact you're making is huge up there.
Well, what I call it is a culture of awareness. So right. I know we use the word autism awareness, and I say for us it's autism action. It's not awareness. Like, we're on awareness on steroids is what I told our county council. We're not awareness anymore. We're action. And for us, we truly, officers will go above and beyond for my peeps, as I call them, because they know that how much it means. So for us, autism and IDD and Alzheimer's and dementia in Montgomery County, the officers take it. I mean, they're dropping their lunch. Cops never do that. They're dropping their lunch to go help, for an individual who's in crisis or is found, or it's amazing, Tim. It's amazing. I'm so lucky. The officers do a great job.
Well, you're lucky in the fact you've got an agency that supports what you're doing. 110%, it looks like, and they're putting you out there. They realize that need, and they've got you specially focused on that. And I look at the difference between taking action and awareness. Maryland, it's mandated that law enforcement have autism training such as that. Some states, such as mine, it's not. So your officers are coming out and they're already being made aware of that it's out there, so they know how to take action. The tough part is when we've got so many different states out here that don't mandate the training, so the officers don't get it. And unless they have a family member affected by it, they don't understand it. So they don't even have that awareness of what it is. And, when I teach, I tell people, look, officers are hurting and killing people with autism. We've got the tools that's what happens a lot of times. And the teaching and training every single officer is not going to stop that from happening. But if we can minimize it and keep those numbers as low as possible, that's all we can do. We can't govern every situation, but if when somebody's walking out, and when you're walking 2 o'clock in the morning, walking up suspicious male standing on the side of the road, humming and flapping his hands, hopefully something you've learned in one of the classes.
It's right here.
Yeah, you recognize the behavior and go, okay, well, I'm still going to stay safe. I know do not touch them unless I absolutely have to. But what also that leads to, if you've had that autism training, you pick up on it may be autism. You don't really need to get your mental health workers and tie them up on something that is autism specific, and they can keep doing the job that they're doing, and you don't have to pull them away. You can sometimes resolve those situations yourself.
Yeah, I have a little catchphrase so officers will laugh, because I think I always say, I want you to hear Laurie's voice in your head on these calls. Think, could it be autism? I've told you the prevalence. I've told you that you're probably more likely to come across someone who's on the autism spectrum than you are who's possibly under the influence. Like, officer safety first, but I always say, think autism. And officers will get on calls, just like you mentioned, and they'll say, holy crap, Laurie, I really heard you say that could be a person who has autism, or they're hand flapping, or they see a behavior. So I'm lucky that way, that officers will actually give me feedback in a proud way. Like, I'm like Mama Bear, because they'll want to say, Laurie, I did such a great job on this call. Or we have an officer who found a young lady in a pond in the middle of the winter. And he said, Laurie, you said go to bodies of water. And I saw a drainage pipe, and I followed the pipe, and there she was. He's like, oh my gosh, Laurie, I believe you.
It's like, it really works. It really works.
Right.
Well, I can't remember what it was, 2017. So you got invited to the White House for all the good work you're doing. Tell us a little about how that came about.
So we have a program we call our Autism IDD ambassadors. And for instance, I have one of our ambassadors who's working on a Department of Justice project right now, talk about training officers throughout the nation. So he has a young man who has autism, and we're working on training officers nationally through the Department of Justice. But with that, the White House was myself. We had a young man, Jake Edwards. He uses his name. It's out there. And Jake was our autism ambassador, and we would teach the recruits. And Jake had an interaction with law enforcement that I went to follow up on.
Right.
And so that kind of fostered that relationship with Jake. So Jake started teaching our recruits, which is always fun when you have someone on the spectrum that's teaching officers, because you never know what he's going to say.
You never know
And he was a teenage boy at that time. So lots of fun entertainment and education.
Right.
But Jake ultimately went on with his mom to teach officers throughout the East Coast, all over.
Wow.
And so it was like 2,000 or 3,000 officers that he taught. So we were nominated from Champions of Change from the Obama administration for our work with law enforcement and the autism IDD community. So we had an opportunity. Joe Biden spoke to us, and we were on a panel discussion, and it was amazing. I mean, it was a surreal moment in my law enforcement career. To go in and then have Jake with me was equally as incredible, because Jake was empowered. And that week, a little thing, Jake was there on a Tuesday, and I think on Thursday he met the Pope. I mean, he's a young man who has autism that had a crisis situation in our county, and now he's meeting the vice president and the Pope in one week.
Amazing.
It was awesome.
That is amazing. And that's what, so again, kudos for everything you're doing. And, I know you use him when your classes, and I've for years been bringing in people on spectrum when I teach it, because I can stand up there all day long and teach it. But to bring somebody in that I think too many people think autism and they think, oh, somebody's going to have an aide with them all the time, or a caregiver with them all the time. But they don't realize that there are people out there working jobs, they're driving. They're the ones that we're going to run across, and we need to pick up on the behaviors. So I usually, whenever I can, I will bring people on spectrum in. And I had one young man I brought in one time to speak the first time to the academy. His mom came and his brother came, and they sat in the back crying because they could not believe we were doing this. And just the feeling you get knowing these parents are scared to death what's going to happen years down the road when they're out in public and I'm not there with them. Are those officers going to understand? That's where I would love to see every state mandate the training. But obviously chiefs and sheriffs, they don't want any more training. They don't want any more mandated training. But, sooner or later, they've got to wake up with 1 in 44 births, resulting in autism. And I tell a lot of people, I don't know if you've heard this, a lot of those families are frustrated because of what they're dealing with. And I tell them, what I think about is these individuals with autism are absorbing everything around them. And they're being inundated with all these sensory things that we just walk by. We don't even pick up on. And I said, sometimes I wonder if we're the ones with the special need, and they get it. They're picking up on so much stuff that we'll walk past and not even recognize it. And they're very, the thing is, some people don't like special needs, but some of them have needs that are specific to them. But they're absolutely amazing, brilliant people. And I think anybody who comes in contact with the general public needs to understand the autism and ID.
Well, I'll say this too, though, Tim. We really right now are struggling with individuals on the spectrum that are in complete crisis, and we're working on rehabbing our mental health response here in Montgomery County. And we're really in a crisis because there are families in crisis, and there is no place for their individual who's on the spectrum that needs a bed, that needs a place to go. And right now we have a young man who's been in the hospital for 65 days who's on the autism spectrum. So I scream at these meetings to say, you guys talk about mental health, but we have a portion of the spectrum that families are in desperate need. And we have a prevalency and an age growing. So an individual that was once 5, that's now 25, who's in crisis, who needs a bed for stabilization, we are in crisis. So the spectrum of autism, for us, law enforcement goes from driving, all the way to someone who might need a bed because they're non-speaking and they're in crisis. And that's a conversation that I end up getting very
Right.
vocal at some of these meetings.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, down here, I think I mentioned it in our phone call, but I'm working with some people down here, and we've formed a nonprofit. It's a betterunderstanding.org to really reach out. And actually, the president is one of our county mental health workers, and she has 2 children on spectrum, Kelly Kramer. And we've got a wide variety of people on the board, but our goal is to go out there. We've got, we want to advocate for individuals with disabilities, disabilities, and also help them learn how to advocate for themselves. I think that's key. But we're planning events. We want to help families that are needing things. Well, I've got a dad now who's got a 19-year-old daughter with autism. Mom passed away a few years ago. Had to quit his job to stay and take care of his daughter. And they're in need of things. And those families are the one we want to, with our nonprofit, be able to help. Have dance parties. We've got some stuff scheduled. Have events for them, because these are the kids that would invite people to the birthday parties and nobody shows up.
Yeah.
Or they don't get invited to the birthday parties. But we want to show them that people do care about them, and we want to show them how special they are, and let these families know they've got somebody here that can help them, and we want to do what we can. So I just, I'm in awe reading everything you're doing up there, but you've got an agency that's putting you out there in that specific environment to do everything that you can do. You're not being pulled to work here, do this, handle calls for service, patrol this, and then in the meantime, go help the individuals with autism. So
yeah, I'm lucky. Our agency has made it a priority, and they always give me great supervisors and great sergeants that just say truly they do. So you're right, Tim. That's part of the equation here, is the support that I do get.
Well, I think what's awesome is the fact that out of 2011, we had a search, and you and I got to meet and connect. And again, thank you, Dad, too, because of course, he sounds like he came more prepared to search than I did. But real quick, what was the one? Is there one thing, and it may be the search, one thing that you said, an aha moment that said, "This is what I want to focus on"?
The search was it. But I'll share one quick story. I had a young man who had some crisis. His mom wanted him to play on a football team. He has autism. His mom got him on a football team, and mom emailed me and said, I never thought I would be the mom that was waiting in the parking lot for my kid who has autism to have a meal with his football team.
Oh, wow.
And as a football mom myself,
right.
To get an email like that from a mom of a son who has autism, it makes you think, holy crap, we're doing something right. That is inclusion at its finest. That's what we need more of.
And what I love, you have children, but you don't have any children with autism.
No,
that's
I don't.
What I think. And my kids are neurotypical. There's no autism. So it's nice to, and I know a lot of people wonder, what's your title? Why are you teaching this? Why are you doing this? Because I want to help. I don't have a child, and I haven't lived what you live, and I don't deal with what you deal with, but I recognize it as a need, and I want to do what I can to help with that need. So I hope we can come back and have some more talks, because I think you and I got a lot of information that hopefully people need and can hear, would love to hear. And I would look up Laurie Reyes, look her up, Google her. You'll find so much up there in Maryland that she's doing. And I hope at some point she and I can connect again face to face, maybe teach some classes or do something. But just keep doing what you're doing, and I definitely want to stay in touch. And I appreciate you coming on this evening to talk with me.
All right, thank you, Tim. Thank you. You too, my brother. You too.
Yes,
keep up the good work.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, and you take care. Everybody, I just want to thank you for being here tonight. I hope you learned something new and saw something going on in another state up in Maryland. And Laurie is doing some amazing things. So we're going to stay in touch and hopefully have her on the show again. But I just want to tell everybody, check out betterunderstanding.org. Check out my website. It's a-betterunderstanding.com. You can email me, aawareness12@yahoo.com. I'll definitely reach back out to you. And I just thank you everybody for watching. And Dad, thanks for watching. I love you.